All right. Good day, everyone. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. My name is Matt Fifer. We're here today with our friend, Suzy Monford. She's the CEO of Food Sport International out of Austin, Texas. And Suzy, if you don't know, leads our People, Planet, and Profit series on the platform. But Suzy and I have come together today to talk about a couple of topics that are sort of on a lot of folks' minds today. And we'll dig into those in just a moment. But Suzy, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining me for this conversation. And if you would, let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself before we dive in.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. And howdy from Austin, Texas. Thanks for taking a few minutes to talk about this. Let's touch on inflation since we're together for a couple of minutes. We should touch on that. And then I also like to touch on ESLs. Two topics which crazily are in the headlines right now. It's kind of political clickbait, I think, to talk about inflation or to try to conflate that. I think, as Leslie Saracen, president of FMI, says brilliantly in a statement she put out, trying to conflate price gouging and inflation. So I've got some points of view on that. And then also let's talk about electronic shelf labels, because those have also come under fire as of late, which has sort of had my head spinning a little bit. But before we do that, so just a quick intro. Yeah, I've spent it's been 2.5 decades now in grocery. I would say 30, but that might age me a little bit more than I deserve. And I'm really lucky, Matt. My career actually started pretty much down the road from where I happen to be now. I started my grocery career with H-E-B Central Market. I feel pretty spoiled. I've often said I feel like I was the luckiest girl in grocery to have Central Market be the beginning of my career. I learned so much as we designed new stores and grew across the state of Texas. Then it's been another, 6 years with H-E-B. So all in about a decade with H-E-B. Then I had something extraordinary happen. I had the first of what would be two opportunities to move to Australia. I was recruited by Coles supermarkets in Australia. They are the largest homegrown Aussie grocer. So I spent 1.5 years, 2 years almost running innovation for Coles. And then I came back to the US and the next thing I knew, about less than a year later, I was recruited to go back to Australia, this time to work for Woolworths. Woolworths is a competitor of Coles. And based on a lot of what I was able to lead and the team and I did, Woolies hired me. And so then I actually did sell my home and I moved to Sydney and worked for Woolies. Absolutely loved that. So I've gotten twice to go down and learn and innovate alongside Aussie grocers who I love and keep up with today. Came back to the States, later took a CEO post with Andronico's out on the West Coast in San Francisco Bay Area. Turned that around, loved it, got to lean into e-commerce for the first time, got to be a key ideator with Instacart when they were nascent. And then we sold it to Safeway Albertsons. The next thing I knew, I had a life-changing opportunity when Fred Morgenthau and Rodney McMullen recruited me, and I went to work for Kroger. First as a president out in Seattle with Quality Food Centers, QFC. I love, near and dear to my heart. And then was promoted and moved to Cincinnati, where I got to run all of fresh food as a group vice president. And then I ran e-commerce, the burgeoning Ocado business. Left Kroger to go be CEO again with PCC Community Markets back in Seattle because I loved it. Triple bottom line company. And now I'm running Food Sport, which enables me to kind of work across the verticals that I have such passion for. So that's a little bit about me, covering a few decades. But we can fast forward now to today and this whole inflation topic.
Yeah, very good. Well, as we've said before, it doesn't matter what economic rung we find ourselves on. We've all been impacted by inflation, and what was promised, several years ago, which is going to be transitory, just passing through, is stuck around. And even though the rate of inflation has slowed, prices have continued to, it has a cumulative effect. And it's been difficult for a lot of families to sort of get caught up. There's been headlines just in the last couple of weeks where the federal government is going to be taking a closer look at retailers because they believe that the passing, tossing political football, it's the most expedient to just blame the retailers for the problems. And the FMI has come out with a pretty good response to that. So why don't you talk a little bit about what's happened with inflation, sort of your view on inflation, as well as the FMI's response, because I know you're really happy with that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I mean, Leslie Saracen, president of FMI, really put out a great statement a couple of days ago. So I suggest everybody take a look at that. But yeah, inflation, all of a sudden, here's the federal government, lots of respect. On the one hand, all during COVID and post-COVID, whether it's Rodney or other CEOs, grocery CEOs going to the White House, having roundtable forums to talk about how can we better support the American consumer against the backdrop of, hey, during COVID, I was never been more proud to be a grocer because we were giving back. We were investing everything we had, literally 24/7 for years to help feed people and help get them the prescriptions and support our communities and support our teammates and our families and our loved ones. So I don't want to be hyperbolic about it, Matt, but come on. I mean, grocers, the reason we're able to take care of you and take care of America during a crisis is because we invest every single day. We are investing. And we look around the corner and we say, what's new and what's next? What are the new technologies that can help us lower our cost of doing business so that we can feed ourselves, our families, and keep prices and keep the value where people need it to be? Now, that being said, I'll answer your question. Inflation is driven by a few things. One, the cost of the raw ingredients. Two, the cost of the labor to create or produce the raw ingredients. Let's say you're making Cheerios. Well, that would be you're farming for oats. And so there's labor there. And then three, it's the supply chain cost, transportation from the farm all the way through point of manufacturer and from manufacturer to distribution to retailer to the consumer's home. It's really expensive. And so if you think of those three things, ingredients, labor, transportation, every one of those has increased in cost post-pandemic. Hence, by the time a chief merchant sitting there, and we're sitting across from our CPG partner negotiating prices. Well, the CPG partner, their cost has risen, and you sit there and you say, okay, great. What can we afford to take on? How can we not pass along that cost to consumers? You could go do a Google search, Matt. Look at every time Rodney at Kroger or look at Walmart and how many times did Doug put out a presser and say, no, we're not accepting any price increases. Manufacturers, you're just going to have to hold and you're going to have to make less. Well, then it was an attempt to balance out the industry and not tip anybody over. Slowly, all those price increases started to come to the fore, and that's what started inflation. But this idea, this accusation by some folks in Washington that grocers are price gouging, and Leslie says it perfectly. Price gouging is a legal term. It's a crime. So don't conflate price gouging with inflation, which is symptomatic of the macroeconomic elements that I just talked about. So yes, inflation's higher than it should be. Yes, it's moderating now, but not fast enough for anybody, whether it's food or whether it's gasoline or whether it's rent. I saw a news story today on CNBC, 86% of people who are renting their home want to buy a home and they feel like they can't afford it. Well, that's not good for anybody. So back to grocers and inflation. Grocers don't want to price gouge. It would be against their own interest. Why? Because we're going to lose our customers. We can't afford to lose our customers. Grocers get up every day. I feel like, as a middle child, I just want everybody to love me anyway. That's why I think I'm such a good grocer. I want everybody to love me. I don't want to lose anybody. If I make a new friend, I got to make sure I'm hanging on to my old friend. And the way that we do that is through transparency and communicating to customers exactly what they're paying for. Yeah. And sorry, now you're going to get me, Matt. I'm going to start talking about why ESLs are so important, because ESLs are the antidote or a part of the antidote for inflation.
Yeah. Well, let's do transition to that in just a moment. But to your point, there's two things that I think of when I think about the retail industry, especially the grocery business. One, historically, it's always been a very low margin business to begin with, so there's not a lot of room anywhere. And the other thing I would say is retail is such a relationship oriented business, and it's a long-term relationship. We have long-term relationship with the retailers that we do business with, and it's based on trust, it's based on consistency, it's based on experience, and so forth. So like you said, it's just not in the interest of a retailer to take those short-term gains at the expense of destroying long-term relationship. But let's do transition to ESL, because that's another area that Washington seems to want to intervene right now, thinking that for in some way electronic shelf labels are going to be damaging to consumers. So talk about that.
Yeah, and I'm not naive. I understand the politics of all this. I mean, I took meetings on the Hill. Gosh, 4 years ago is when I thought about getting into politics. So I get it. It's clickbait talking about this new shiny object is the boogeyman. It's the reason for all these things that are happening to you, but it's just not the truth. An ESL stands for electronic shelf label. It's a techie term for saying price tag. So let me just frame this out just a bit. The average size grocery store, your neighborhood grocery store has anywhere from 20 to 30,000 products that they sell. They're called SKU, stock keeping unit. A larger store, if it's a Kroger superstore or if it's a Walmart supercenter, they're going to have upwards of 100,000 different items that they sell. Okay. So think about that and think about how much prices have gone up and down and up and down and up and down just post pandemic. Think about that just for a second. What size army of humans do you imagine it's going to take to constantly adjust those prices? If you want to offer the customer the best possible value every day that they come in, then you've got to be able to be fast and nimble and flexible. And we've got to move away from printed paper price tags that take a long time to download. There's teams of people today sitting in the back room, downloading a file, hoping that the printer works, sending the file to the printer on perforated paper, tearing off these price tags, organizing them, putting them in a trolley, in a basket, and they're going aisle by aisle by aisle by aisle. It takes days to do a price change, days. Yeah. And by the time we raise it, it may have lowered or other way around. So electronics now allow us to do seamless file transmission, instantaneously lowering prices. All that labor that we invested in those humans, we can invest in them doing things that customers actually value, like customer service, like working behind the deli counter or working in the produce department or slicing your meat back in the butcher or making your fresh bakery baguette, things that customers actually care about. So that's all that labor cost is reinvested to make the store better and to reduce cost to serve. Secondarily, it helps us be dynamic in our pricing promotion. And let's say we're going long on some produce items. Maybe your tomatoes on the vine need to go on sale right now because otherwise they're going to spoil and it becomes food waste, which is a crime. Well, with ESLs, the store manager can get in there with some autonomy and say, yep, we're going to do a 3-for-1. We'll sell those tomatoes. You're going to go home. You're going to make a beautiful marinara sauce. It's going to cost you 30% less than it would have, and you're going to be happy, and there's no food waste. The ESLs, Matt, they indicate to us when products go out of stock so we can replenish more efficiently so that when you do come and shop, you actually get what you want. You get to go home with it. They also have some features that talk to eCommerce, the folks that are shopping and picking the next time you order for curbside. These ESLs have a little radar built in, and they'll start flashing to indicate to the picker, oh, hey, I'm right here. I'm right here. This is the item you want. So the person picks the correct item and they can find it more quickly and serve you faster. So in short, ESL, the E should stand for efficient, but it's the most efficient way we can run our stores. It reduces cost across the bandwidth of everything we do, and all of that's reinvested. Because what you said a second ago, maybe I should have touched on that. This is a very low margin business. Leslie Saracen, FMI, some of their most recent data, it's a 1 to 1.5% net income business, Matt, at the end of the day. We're talking pennies. A grocer is investing anywhere from 96 to 99 cents out of every dollar to stay in business. So the idea of price gouging and the idea that we should forego technology that can help us serve you better, that's just crazy. Yeah. So yeah, that's the story on ESLs.
What I read about the criticism of ESLs is laughable. I mean, it's intellectually lazy, if not dishonest. You think about the benefits both to the retailer and to the consumer, and like like you said, the ability to manage margin, manage promotions, manage markdowns, and reduce throwaways. It's just good for everybody. Talk a little bit, because I know that ESLs are a lot more common in Europe than they are in the States, but we're making progress. And you had a partnership with a great company that's sort of at the forefront of that. Talk about U.S. penetration of ESLs and what you think the future looks like.
Yeah, I've done some really good work with the Vusion company. They're Vusion. They formerly were known as SES Magatag. They're out of France. And they're the world's largest ESL provider. Fantastic European-based company. And yeah, in Europe, the Europeans are laughing at us right now. They're it's the default in Europe. So whereas here in the U.S., we're still 90% paper and we're slowly changing. In Europe, it's the other way around. But Vusion has a massive footprint here in the States. They've been investing a lot in our country and in North America. And so Walmart US is rolling them out here as we speak. They've already, gosh, I've lost count how many stores are already done, thousands of stores. And there are other regional grocers like Hy-Vee and like Schnucks. Instacart has partnered with Vusion and with SES. If you hear Instacart talk about their carrot tags, that's same thing. It's ESL. So it's growing. I mean, all the regionals, the best, my beloved, where I started my career at HEB, they're all looking at ESLs. So this wave is coming because it's sustainable. It's more efficient. It helps us curate just for you. It helps us give you what you want when you want it at the absolute best price. So it's coming, Matt. And I hope more folks get on the bandwagon more quickly.
Yeah. Great stuff. Suzy's been great catching up with you. And I know these are two subjects that you're very, very passionate about. So I appreciate your time. Suzy Monford, CEO of Food Sport International. Look forward to talking with you again soon. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks, Matt.